Hi, welcome to episode 3 of the Weekly Wave. I'm Matthew Lyons.
And I'm Aaron Johnson,
Our guest here today is president of the class of 2021,
mental health advocate.
as well as a member of the Anti-Bullying Club, Rachel Barrett.
How you doing, Rachel?
Good, how are you?
Good,
Doing all
thank
right.
you.
I feel like we always say that, like we're all right.
Yeah, you've yet to catch us on a bad day, so.
Don't be there. Anyways, but recently on Monday, we had guest speaker John Morello come in to talk about teenage issues, obviously the drugs, the mental health, social status. He really had it was a different presentation. I think Matt can go into detail on that.
It was very unorthodox. At first, it seemed like a stand-up routine, and I'm a huge fan of stand-up, so that was pretty fun to see. And then he really opened up about his personal life, and then he incorporated these characters to kind of show different sides of mental health, drug abuse, social status. It was very interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. We've all gone to school with each other forever now, and we've had a lot of presenters come in, and I don't know, it was so different. We've never seen anything like it, and I think that really spoke to the kids.
Yeah, the fact that it was like one-man show, but he put on a bunch of different
Right.
personalities, it kind of confused me at first.
Right.
But then once you get into it, it's like really inspirational. You see what he's trying to convey, and the fact that he brought his personal life into it, about like how he was poor and just the death of his brothers, was very truly like moving for me at least.
And I thought it was very clever the way he tied all these different characters together. It was very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So, Rachel, what do you think how do you think students should benefit from this presentation?
Well, I think just kind of one thing that I liked about the presentation overall was I felt like it wasn't a lecture. It wasn't someone coming and telling you, don't do drugs, don't bully, don't do all these things. And instead, he used storytelling and the characters, all the different characters that he had, to say it without having to say it. And I feel like that really does speak to students, because if you go to an assembly one day, you get called down, you get to get out of class, everyone's all excited, and you go and you see this person and they're just telling you not to do things. I mean, what's the one thing we know? Someone's told not to do something, they're gonna want to do it. And I feel like when he used kind of like stories and examples and really showed us that you really don't know what other people are going through, I feel like that really did speak to a lot of kids, because I mean, people I've talked to, they have said that they've felt like some of the characters or have been in similar situations to some of the characters that he was portraying, and it was just such a relatable show that I feel like it really spoke to the kids and got them thinking and just made them more aware of how they treat people and everything. Yeah.
He was talking a lot about mental health. And do you believe that schools are doing enough for their kids to help them with these mental health issues? Because it's been brought into a spotlight recently with like depression, anxiety, all of those, about people are speaking out, and they're saying we need help, and schools are responding. How do you feel? Do you feel schools are responding well enough?
I think it depends on the school. Obviously, we know no matter what, every single teenager is going to have, to some extent, some form of depression or anxiety. I mean, with the amount of hormones going around and just like the whole social structure of high school, it's some of the best, but also some of the worst years of your life. I mean, just so much is going on and all the drama, and sometimes it can be such a toxic environment. I think it can be a great environment, but it can also be extremely toxic. I feel here at Abington High School, we do have, we have the Anti-Bullying Club, and we have wonderful Miss Posk, who is our school psychologist, and I think she does a really great job of connecting with kids and kind of helping them out in that fact. We have great guidance counselors that kids can go to, and amazing teachers that even if it's not something big, I feel like students do feel comfortable enough with teachers to confide in them. But some schools, unfortunately, aren't. We're very fortunate here at Abington High School, and I feel like some students at other schools aren't as lucky to have what we have here.
I feel like the principals, like Miss Luco and Dr. Sullivan, are very aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's why we have a school psychologist. I feel like that's a really neat idea that they implemented in that,
Yeah.
and they're building on to this kind of help center
Mm-hmm.
where you have somewhere to go to. You have somewhere you can go with like the Nook and Dr. Luco's office, and it's just. I feel like Abington High School is really adapting to the situation in a very like well way.
Yes, I agree with that. I do agree with that. Mental health, not even just in society nowadays, it's been brought to the forefront, and there's so many. Like you scroll through Instagram, you see so much stuff about mental health, and schools are really getting it now, and they're understanding. I mean, you talk to our parents; they're like, depression wasn't a thing when we were kids. Like
Everyone just told you to suck it up.
exactly, and now people are a lot, especially schools, are a lot better with dealing with it.
Now, you mentioned social media. In the past, in previous episodes, we've talked about how negative social media can be. Do you think that social media can help with depression and like raising awareness?
Yes, I do. Personally, I wrote for the Green Wave Gazette. I wrote an article last
good
year.
plug.
Yes. It's called Mental Health Matters. It's still up, and it talks about a specific student that we had last year. She has graduated and is in college now, but kind of her struggle with mental health, and she created a blog actually. It's called Safer Souls, and it's kind of a way for kids struggling with mental health that don't really know how to deal with it, for them to kind of like an outreach program, if that makes sense, for them to receive support with
It's awesome.
what they're going through. It is awesome. And I feel like in that retrospect, yes, but also it's kind of both ends of the spectrum. Like Aaron agreed with me, you see so much stuff on social media about mental health in America today. But I think at the same time, I mean, we all know like a lot of students have like Finstas, like fake Instagrams, and they some of the stuff that they say bad stuff about people without actually like telling. And so I think that as much as it can be great, it can also be very, very bad.
That's a very popular opinion. Everyone believes that it's just like a debatable subject whether social media can help or hurt. A lot of the times people say, oh, social media helped me get through, because even though a lot of people were being mean to me in my school, I had my online friends. But also cyberbullying is a thing now, and a lot of people talk about being cyberbullied. It's just social media. I don't know if it's done us any good or any bad. It's very, I guess,
Both.
just controversial.
It's a double-edged sword, because
Yes.
while there is good, there's a lot of bad.
And all right, our final question. We've been on for quite a while. John Morello, the speaker, he gave his presentation and act in an untraditional way. He made like edgy jokes, definitely more relatable to the student, I would say. How do you feel about this different style? Like, it's basically a stand-up act. How do you feel about someone coming to the school and having like a stand-up comedy, but also a very inspirational personal story as a way to teach kids on to do what's right?
I think I loved it. Personally, I loved it. I know, speaking to you guys earlier, you guys loved it. And almost every single person I've talked to has loved it. And you just don't get that reaction when it's someone who just comes and tells their story. He told his story, but it was very, like you said, unconventional, unorthodox. And I feel like when someone just comes and lectures you, and I don't know, it doesn't really speak to students, but this truly did speak to students. The way that he magically got to everyone. I mean, I saw so many people going up and shaking his hand at the end and saying, like, thank you so much for coming here. And the Anti-Bullying Club, we were so happy that he came. And we also, we thanked the Coombs Foundation and the PTO for providing us with the funds to get him here. But he was so amazing, and he really did speak to so many students. I feel like he spoke to more students than like any other presenter that we've had or anything. Like we talk about, he used stand-up, and also just he made everything was relatable. Everyone could relate to it. I mean, I only think I've spoken to like 2 people after that were kind of still like lost, because it was a bit confusing. You know, he switched from character to character with his story, but I mean, overall, I think it was amazing. And we've already, just in the past few days, we've decided that we want to bring him back in the future.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
And we're back for a segment I like to call AJ's A-List. It was recently just Super Bowl Sunday, and what a lot of people would like to call boring and a disappointment, with the lowest scoring Super Bowl ever. 13-3, Patriots won. I mean, like, obviously, what were we expecting?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting much, especially after last year's loss. This was a very important Super Bowl for us.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about last year's loss. Like,
Yeah.
we started off the season bad, but we really went into a very good season. Anyway, on to the Super Bowl. It was a huge defensive battle. The scoring mostly happened in the fourth quarter. The first 3 quarters were just punt after punt after punt after punt, and it was boring.
Yeah.
Super Bowl halftime show, it gets worse and worse every year, folks. Maroon 5, they were all right. Travis Scott without auto-tune sounded terrible, but
Yeah, it lacked the spectacle that a Super Bowl halftime show should have.
I don't know if it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Katy Perry on a flying, flaming horse or whatever
Yeah,
it was.
Lady Gaga was jumping off of like buildings and catching footballs and stuff. It was cool. There was dancing. There was other stuff.
Adam
incorporated.
Levine taking his shirt off was a real letdown.
Yeah.
Anyway, at the end, Greg Zerline, there was 5 seconds left. I don't know what the Rams were expecting, but it was a very awe moment when this guy who's been basically perfect in the postseason with field goals, kicking 50-yarders, like 57-yarders in the postseason, misses a 47-yard field goal and crushes all hope. I mean, 5 seconds left, all hope was crushed anyway.
Yeah.
Like, the Rams were expecting to make this field goal, get an onside kick, and convert on that Hail Mary. Like, it just was impossible standards, most likely. Yeah, but parade was fun. Huge amounts of Patriot supporters came up to Boston yesterday to really root on the team and put, like, I don't know, like a sweet end to an amazing season for the Patriots.
And now to turn over to the weekend box office. Did you get that football reference?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't very good.
Whatever.
I'm sorry.
Go to the box office.
Okay. First place is, once again, Glass, grossing over $9.5 million. Then is The Upside with $8.6 million. Then is Miss Bala with $6.8 million. Then is Aquaman with $4.8 million.
Still in the box office,
It's
even though
still
it
in
came
there.
out in, like, December.
It might have came out in January.
No, it definitely came out, like, mid-December. Whatever.
Okay, anyway, and last but not least is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which grossed $4.5 million. And now it's time for a new segment called Movie Time with Matt, where I recommend one movie that the audience should watch.
I don't know this movie, folks. I'm completely out of the loop, so.
Yeah, it is completely a surprise. So this week's movie is... Can we get a drum roll, please?
It's going to be really loud, but.
It's all right. Okay. The Departed. The Departed is directed by Martin Scorsese and stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Mark Wahlberg, Alec Baldwin, and more. This movie is phenomenal. It has great acting, great writing, great cinematography, and it is well worth a second watch. This movie
is The Departed about?
Well, that's a great question. The Departed is about a police officer that goes undercover to infiltrate a crime boss.
Okay.
The crime boss's operation. And I don't think I should say anything more, but it is a phenomenal movie.
What do you think? More information would, like, ruin the story, or?
Yes, it would. Yeah.
No, I kind of want to see
It
it.
also stars Jack Nicholson, and he's Jack Nicholson. He's always great, but yeah, he is phenomenal. This movie is just all around awesome, and I cannot recommend it more. Thanks for watching. Tune in next week to see an all-new episode of The Weekly Wave with special guest Mr. Peter Schaefer.
And make sure to follow us on our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And also, special thanks to Allison Sanasuazo for making our shows so great all the time.
And another shout out to my brother, Michael.
Happy birthday, Michael.